Gypsy Rose might really be going back to prison for all of her parole violations after her baby is born. We've all noticed her violate her parole a million times by now, and if you're anything like me, you've come to the conclusion that it's just favoritism and Miss Girl's just getting special treatment.
Gypsy Rose will not be able to keep her baby when it's born. Like, is that not breaking news? Oh my God.
We are diving into a situation that is as heartbreaking as it is dramatic. It's about Gypsy Rose Blanchard, a name that has been etched into the true crime world for years. Gypsy's story is one that has haunted and fascinated so many of us. A story of manipulation, survival, and ultimately crime. Now, years after being convicted for her role in the death of her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, Gypsy is out of prison, married, and expecting a baby. But it seems that Gypsy's new chapter might not be as smooth as she hoped. With multiple parole violations and ongoing controversies, there is growing speculation that Gypsy might lose custody of her child once it's born.
There's a couple reasons why Gypsy Rose Blanchard is headed back to the big house for the rest of her parole while she's pregnant.
It's a lot to unpack, so grab your popcorn, cozy up, and let's break it all down. From Louisiana's strict custody laws to Gypsy's recent actions, we'll explore every detail of what might lead to this devastating outcome for Gypsy. Let's get into it. Okay, loves, let's start with a question that's probably on everyone's mind. Why is custody even an issue here? Gypsy is having a baby, right? Shouldn't this just be a happy moment for her and her husband Ken? Well, the situation is much more complicated than that. To understand why Gypsy's ability to keep custody of her child is being called into question, we need to look at a couple of important factors: her past, her criminal record, and Louisiana law. These three things together paint a picture that the court is going to have to carefully evaluate before making any decisions about her baby's future.
Just heard from Hollywood Gossip, check it out, and they're claiming that Gypsy Rose will not be able to keep her baby when it's born. I'm telling you, good is prevailing over evil right now. That's how I see it, and I love it. And it's all thanks to you guys and everybody out there that are helping to spread the word about this girl's incapacities and negligence and just plain evilness. You know, threatening somebody's newborn, and oh my God. I'm so glad that they're doing something about her. I really am. I really am. It does look like good is prevailing over evil right now. I'm not a religious person, but I'm thinking about it.
First, let's talk about Louisiana law because this is super important. Louisiana's custody laws are very clear about one thing: the best interests of the child always come first. What does that mean? It means that the court is going to put the child's safety, stability, and well-being above everything else, even the parents' rights. If there is any indication that a parent might not be able to provide a secure and loving environment, the court has a duty to intervene.
Child custody in Louisiana. Magic question: how do courts determine which parents get the child and for how long? First and foremost, when you're dealing with child custody, once a petition or lawsuit has been filed to determine child custody, the court is going to always look through the lens of the best interest of the child, what we call the VIOC, the best interest of the child. That is the standards of between mom and dad, or whatever the case may be, the two parents that are going on. The court is going to look at which parent having custody of the child primarily is in the child's best interest. In making that determination, the Louisiana Civil Code Article 134 is basically the guide the court goes by. Louisiana Civil Code Article 134. It says the court can determine or can consider any relevant factor, and then it kind of lays out 4 or 14 factors that act as a guide. These are the things that the court weighs. That includes stuff like has either party been abusive to the child, the mental and physical health of both parties, the ability of one party to offer love and affection to the child and to foster or encourage a loving and healthy relationship with the other parent. So if you're the one parent that wants to keep the child from the other one, can't talk to him, can't see him, not going to be around my kid, that does not go well for you. That's an X in the box on the wrong side. The court's going to say who is able to encourage a good relationship between mom or dad or whatever the case may be.
And here's where it gets tricky for Gypsy. One of the biggest factors that courts look at when deciding custody is the parent's criminal record. Now, it's no secret that Gypsy has a criminal history, one that's been widely publicized and debated for years. Her conviction for second-degree murder isn't just a blemish on her record, it's a violent crime, and that carries significant weight in custody cases. Let's break this down a little more. Gypsy's crime wasn't just any violent act. It was against her own mom, Dee Dee Blanchard. While we all know Dee Dee's abuse played a massive role in what happened, the fact remains that Gypsy was involved in orchestrating her mother's death. From a legal standpoint, this raises serious concerns about her ability to form healthy, nurturing relationships, especially with family members. The court may be asking, if Gypsy could go to such extreme lengths against her own mother, how can we be sure that she's ready to take on the responsibility of being a mother herself? And this brings us to the second big reason custody is being questioned. Gypsy's criminal record isn't just a thing of the past.
And the Missouri Department of Corrections pregnant women's program, because they have that new thing in Vandalia, doesn't want to take the risk and whatever. I don't believe it's true. As a woman who has been a DOC 5 times prior to the program they have, the Department of Corrections does not care if you have your baby in custody. It's heartbreaking, and it happens all the time. You go to sleep with your pregnant roommate in the same room, you wake up, they're packed out because they had to go to the hospital to have their baby. They come back without their baby, heartbroken. I've seen so many cases of this. But if it is true, then it's just one more way that she is better than the rest of us. It's sad, isn't it? There are women that get released for less serious crimes who come from backgrounds of toxic, sick families and know nothing better, that break the cycle, get out of prison, change their lives, and start doing better for the world.
While she served her time and is now out on parole, her freedom isn't exactly guaranteed. Parole is conditional, meaning that any major violation could land her back in prison. This creates a very unstable environment for her unborn child. Can you imagine the trauma of being separated from your mother at such a young age because she was sent back to prison? The court certainly can, and that's something they're going to weigh heavily. But there is more. Gypsy's situation becomes even more complex when you consider that she and her husband Ken have publicly stated that they plan to co-parent rather than raise the child together in a traditional family structure. This means that custody arrangements will likely come into play, even if Gypsy doesn't lose custody entirely. Allegedly, CPS has already been in contact with Gypsy about her baby, which suggests they're keeping a close eye on her situation.
I'll just say that a little birdie recently told me that that's not the case at all, and the reason that Gypsy's parole violations haven't landed her back in prison yet is because the prison itself cannot handle the risk of bad press from having a high-profile pregnant inmate like Gypsy due to all of the infant passings and complications with their current pregnant inmates, and they don't want to be held liable for that. So this source claims that they're actually keeping track of every parole violation and building a case on Gypsy so that they can strike when the time is right after the baby is born. Now, this is a news source for me, so I cannot confirm or deny if this is 100% true, but it makes a lot of sense, and I do believe that it's highly possible.
So, while it's tempting to see this as a fresh start for Gypsy, the reality is that her past and some aspects of her present are making it very hard for her to prove that she can provide a safe and stable environment for her baby. And that brings us to our next point. Gypsy's actions since being released from prison, which, let's say, haven't exactly helped her case. Alright, now that we understand why Gypsy's custody is being questioned, let's talk about the thing that makes her situation even more complicated: her parole violations. Yes, loves, Gypsy hasn't exactly been playing by the rules, and this could seriously jeopardize her chances of keeping her child. First, let's discuss the stalking allegations. Reports have surfaced claiming that Gypsy stalked a content creator named Gypsy Rose. Allegedly, Gypsy went so far as to show up at Ivory's place and even visited her home. Let that sink in for a moment. This isn't just a minor violation, it's a direct breach of boundaries and a clear violation of her parole conditions. Now, you might be wondering, why does this matter so much in a custody case? Well, stalking is a serious offense, and it raises questions about Gypsy's judgment, impulse control, and overall stability. If she's engaging in this kind of behavior while on parole, stop her from making similar poor decisions once she's responsible for her child. But that's not all. Gypsy has also been accused of manipulating a friend to send threats to another content creator. This might sound like a minor drama to some, but think about it. It's eerily similar to the way she manipulated Nick Goshen into carrying out the murder of her mother. The fact that Gypsy is allegedly using similar tactics now could indicate a troubling pattern of behavior.
Gypsy had no role in that title. They didn't get to choose the title of that show. It hasn't, I think if they could have chosen a title, they would not have chosen Life After Lockup for the show. But if you watch the first 3 episodes, it's pretty clear that Ryan and Gypsy are not compatible in any way, and it really has nothing to do with Ken.
And let's not forget, loves, that parole violation isn't just bad for Gypsy's custody case. They're bad for her freedom, period. If these allegations are proven true, she could face serious consequences, including the possibility of being sent back to prison. And that's where this all ties back to her baby. If Gypsy is incarcerated, the court is going to have no choice but to remove her child from her care. It's heartbreaking, but it's also a reality that the court has to consider. But here's another layer to the story. These parole violations could also indicate that Gypsy hasn't fully learned from her past. One of the key factors the court will look at is whether there is a pattern of behavior that suggests she might re-offend. Unfortunately, these recent actions don't exactly inspire confidence. To make matters worse, Louisiana law is particularly strict when it comes to custody cases involving parents with a history of violence. Even if Gypsy can argue that her crime was an isolated incident, the court is likely to take her recent actions into account. The stalking allegations, the manipulation tactics, and the parole violations all paint a picture of someone who might not be ready to provide the stable, secure environment that a child needs. The courts will undoubtedly take this into consideration. If Gypsy is willing to bend the truth now, what's stopping her from engaging in even more manipulative behavior in the future? It's a tough question, but one that's central to this custody case. So what's next for Gypsy and her baby? If reports are accurate, Child Protective Services might already be involved. Once the baby is born, CPS could step in to assess the situation and determine whether Gypsy can provide a safe and stable home. This could lead to a range of outcomes. Gypsy might retain custody but under strict supervision, or CPS could decide that the baby would be better off in someone else's care. Either way, the focus will be on the baby's best interests, not Gypsy's desires. So loves, here we are at the big questions. Will Gypsy be able to prove that she's capable of being a good mother? Can she overcome her past and show that she's steady, she's ready to provide a stable, loving home for her child? Or will CPS decide that her history and recent actions are too big of a risk? One thing's for sure, this is a complicated emotional situation with no easy answers. We want to hear your thoughts, so drop them in the comments below. Do you think Gypsy deserves a second chance to raise her child? Or do you believe the court and CPS are right to be cautious? And of course, do not forget to like and subscribe for more updates on this unfolding story. Until next time, loves, stay curious and stay kind.